That's
Makes
the
most sense.
end of the year.
Yeah, why have an election for 2 months for one more meeting after this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, it is 5:30. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'm gonna take roll call.
You are making me there.
Lonnie Rainbow,
Here.
Sarah Thompson,
Here.
Mike Baker,
Here.
Kat Stone,
Here.
Janice Baker,
Here.
Tom Trotter,
Here.
and Mark may or may not be here.
Let's all stand for the pledge of allegiance. Sarah, can you lead us?
I
Pledge
Pledge allegiance
Flag.
to the United States of America,
To the
republic for which it stands.
nation, under God, indivisible,
So,
with liberty and justice for all.
Sort of a- Just to it.
Yeah.
All right, next on our agenda is item number 4, consent agenda. 4.1, July 12th, 2021 regular meeting minutes, and 4.2, July financial reports.
And if you have any questions about the financial report, we have our new finance manager here.
Hello.
Shirley.
Hi.
Yes.
So do you have anything that you would like to point out on the financial report before we approve it?
It probably looks a bit more detailed than what you're used to seeing.
Okay.
So. The budget that was approved and you have it out.
It's gonna make reporting a lot easier.
Did anything jump out at you, or you still trying to get your arms around a little bit?
No, I think aside from just getting our funding in, for the new. year. We're waiting on, as soon as we get that, next month. Much better.
Perfect.
I'm broken down a little bit. There's some copies of that.
I see our accounting fees are at 30% already, or they? Is that just because we're switching something or doing something beyond what we got in the budget when we were budgeting?
Yeah, we've had numerous meetings with Laura
Ah.
and as she's handing off.
Oh,
So
okay, that makes
Thanks for
sense.
meetings.
Yeah.
How do you like the format?
Like the detail.
Well, I would move to the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, Mike has made the motion. Go to second.
Second.
Got a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Public comment for on agenda items only. Do you have anything from anybody? Anything come in?
Natasha,
Natasha, anything? Okay, hearing none. Move on to item number 6. New business 6.1, resolution 21-3, bank signatures. Cheryl?
So we reached out to Umpqua Bank. The signature card. Oh, we did get the signature card, didn't we? Oh. That we need. So the resolution is what we need first. Yes, so this is just so that we can add Sarah onto the
I do
assignment.
have that printed, it's sitting on my desk.
This is just to add Sarah.
and removes
John.
John.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
removes John.
And I'm already listed on there, so. that doesn't affect me at all.
Mark as well.
This is just a quick letter. It's in her packet, right?
Yes, it's,
The resolution is in the packet.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 21-3 bank signatories.
Sarah's made the motion.
Second.
Baker second, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll put it to vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6.2, general manager contract. So Mike, I appreciate you putting this out. I think it was a great document. I think everybody had time to look at it. I had one little comment that I passed out to everybody regarding section 10, I believe.
Yeah, I built this off of a, I'm on another board in town, another government agency, and we had just rewritten the executive director, general manager's contract, and I was helping rewrite, so I actually had a copy of it, and so I just kind of reformatted yours into that one and mesh the two, I thought, you know.
So I did put an email out to Ron, and he responded today and said that it looked in order. The only question he had was regarding the date of the appraisal, which is section 6. In it, we have
We don't have the contract. Is that your copy from home?
yeah, I printed it from home,
It
so
wasn't provided.
It wasn't printed, or?
Wasn't given.
we don't
to me.
have it.
Yeah.
well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, here, can I send it to you real quick?
I apologize. I thought I didn't even look at who all sent to.
I got it as an email.
Well, I sent it to everybody's, whatever email that came up on my phone, but,
Oh, so I did get the one from you.
That's what we're.
Okay.
That's the one we're looking at.
see, that was bylaws here, sorry. Do you have it, Cheryl? I sent it a copy, right?
I'm pretty
Just to
sure
see
you
if you're
sent it to
okay.
me, yeah.
Cause it's contract.
Right.
22 people.
So-
Who am I looking for? CES, that's what I'm looking for. Okay.
I guess I'll finish my conversation. Ron said it was fine. The only thing he question was on number 6, performance evaluation. It says employee shall be entitled to an evaluation of employee performance at such time and in such manner as the chair and board shall deem appropriate, as well as on or about, and it did say April 1st of each year. His question is, do we want to have it coincide more with the contract, which is July 1? Or what we're looking at as far as a contract year is July 1. And so I just made an adjustment to June 1st because we want to have the evaluation done before.
Yeah.
So have it completed around June 1st.
Yeah, in this case, this board's fiscal year is April. And I think I saw that, and then I thought, well, we want to have it done beforehand, so I just left it at April, I
Yeah.
think,
I like April.
but.
April's fine. It just because the budget year starts July 1. And so it'd be done because the new salary, you can line it up with the new budget year.
Yeah,
That was my thinking with that, is it that the new salary would start and coincide with the new budget year.
So that's what I was thinking. So I was thinking budget a little bit on this April 1st.
Right.
Because if you were to do the review and make a salary change, then you can have that in the budget before it's adopted before July, which would be in
Absolutely.
June.
Yeah.
So that you know a little bit ahead. That's why I left it in there.
Okay, and I've heard of it on April. I mean, it was just a comment that he made and I made the adjustment based on that, so we can definitely leave
I mean,
it. as
potentially
that.
it could even be March 1st or something.
It says on or about, so.
So, yeah, so generally in that March, probably no later than April.
Yeah.
You'd want to put that in there.
And then the other
And we have a
thing,
salary schedule, so it does make things easier,
Right.
but if we were to provide other benefits or other things or whatever, then those could be budgeted for.
the other thing that I put in which I threw out to everybody, was a comment regarding payment at termination, and this is something I've seen in most contracts. I added the clause that in the event the employee is terminated by UPTD for reasons other than for good reason as defined in section 9, which basically is gross misconduct, that the general manager would be paid a 90-day basically golden
Like a
parachute
severance?
severance. Yeah. So I just added the clause about if they're actually terminated for gross misconduct, or in this contract is labeled good reason. Which that's how most contracts have in that clause in there. So that's the only thing I added. Everything else looked good. Ron was good with it. I guess what I would say is, since Cheryl hasn't really had time to digest it, it sounds like that the approval would be that the content would be approved by the board and allow me and Cheryl to go ahead and finish out the negotiation, sign once she's comfortable with it. If there's anything that wants to be changed, it'll come back to the board. So I'd entertain a motion for that approval.
But do we want to get this printed out first, and maybe?
Did you look at it in
She's
the
pretty-
email?
Yeah. But maybe, just so that everybody has a chance to read it or something. Maybe we just go on to the next agenda item while it's coming, and then we can take a break somewhere in there and.
Well, like I said, if we just take it as, because has everybody had a chance to look at it?
Cat hasn't.
Oh, I sent it on email, but yeah, Kat, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and do that then. We'll table this for right now, and then we'll come back to that one.
It's not super long or anything, so.
No. It really is a boilerplate contract, so. Okay, so we will move on to section item 7, old business, and we'll board bylaws review.
So the bylaws were provided to everyone via email, but also you have a printed copy here as well. We did receive comments, and they're included here in the second set of staple papers from Mike Baker. But we did not have any comments from anyone else to be able to provide to you. So I guess the most appropriate thing would be for you to go through page by page and insert any comments that you did have.
I left my copy at home, so now I'm reading through trying to remember what I had marked up on mine.
Oh, you don't have the markup?
Yeah.
It's in the-
Second copy.
No, okay. I'll do it.
So we can go through this page by page. So on page 1,
Try to give a reason on the right.
it is basically removing secretary bylaws. Second item, board typically allows for flexibility in meeting times, but still expresses where and when need to be regular meeting. I think that's fine. Object number objectives. Item number 2, UPTD Board of Directors is committed to maintaining safe and reliable public transportation.
It's
That lines up with the strategic action. Transportation initiative.
reliable. That was my one piece I got in there. One comment that made it.
DOTC would be so proud of you.
Accomplished that day.
Number 3,
You need it in that same paragraph, you need a space between transit
Oh, and
and
service.
service on the second line.
Oh, yeah.
Organization, Mike had policy and includes recent policy prohibiting vendors and employees from serving on the board.
So before I just read from regarding our formation documents, but that wouldn't be part of our formation documents. This was a subsequent policy that this board enacted.
Okay.
Yeah.
You else have anything for these sections? Okay. Our floor for order of business. Nothing. Item number 5, officers. Again, taking out secretary and some wordsmithing to make that change. And then take,
9.3, you need a space between that and executive assistant.
so appoint the
It might be in
executive.
the grammar police today.
I think what this is it was a PDF to Word
Oh,
Yeah.
translation, probably right.
on that.
Yeah.
The chair shall not serve more than 2 years in a row.
Since we're electing the chair every year, vote them out. No?
So I've sat on a couple, and even though you can still do that, typically I've seen it where there's a maximum where a person will only serve 2 years. That way you get a rotation in it. It's just, so I've seen the 2 year and I kind of like the 2 year.
I like the 2 year.
So I would leave that in there. Because you're right, you can vote them out anytime, but this kind of limits the fact that they can only serve 2 years in a row and then get somebody else to serve them there.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for turnover, because you know, they will continue to vote them in for 10, 12 years. And you want to vote them out, but then it feels
You're
kind
not
of
voting
awkward at that point.
This allows it just for it to rotate through, so I would say that we want to probably leave that one in there.
Okay.
Well, do you want to leave an interim period of time before they can serve again?
Was that in there?
It's not more than 2 years in a row. I think you could serve again.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly fine to serve again. It's just 2 years in a row.
I mean, then the next person can serve a year or two, and the person could come back if the board so wanted.
And I think the way that this was written, it kind of allows that flexibility.
Yeah. And then this
Do you
next,
want to break in between there,
Well,
or does it matter
I
to you?
just, it was a question in my mind if we should have a period of time where they don't get reelected.
yeah, that's okay.
I'm open to whatever. Did you have one way or the other?
No,
Okay.
I just.
Okay.
I don't have a good argument for either way. I just wanted to know.
So this next one, I added some stuff in there more about appointments and special meetings, so I must not have provided a comment on this one, but so my thought was on this one that when you appoint to the chair, obviously it was already in there about presiding at board meetings, but appoints all committees with the consent of the board of directors. So in other words, so on our stiff and stack, it's not just the chair saying you're on it, you're on it, you're on it, you're on it, and the board doesn't get any say. Because you could have somebody on it that could be very disruptive, or somebody knows and just like, oh, wow, I wouldn't want them on it, or something. And it gives the board, it allows the chair to essentially nominate and kind of help pick those people, but then it's the board that actually selects them and says, yes, we want to appoint you to this position, which is typically how it's done. So, and then authorizes calls for all board meetings unless called for by the board of directors. And of course, the only way for the board of directors to call a meeting is to be in a meeting. So potentially, you have a situation in which the board chair is absent, and it's the vice chair, right, that's there and serving in that. And I guess you can kind of finagle a way to say, well, they're acting in the position of chair, but not necessarily for the special meeting. So anyway, if for a board to be it, you have to have a majority, and for a majority to be present, you have to be in a meeting. But it provides an opportunity for the board itself. Maybe the chair says, I don't want a special meeting, but everybody else, or the majority of the board, wants a special meeting. In that meeting, the board then can call the special meeting, having the majority and speaking for the board. It's not just left up to the board chair.
Gotcha,
Is all.
that makes sense.
And then in the absence of the chair, the vice chair, so I think that was in there. And then the absence, and I think I said upon the request of the chair, take over any duties that he or she is unable to perform. Which who knows, sometimes it could be an issue or situation, something they feel uncomfortable with doing, and they could assign it to the vice chair.
I just wordsmith it just a little bit. Either in the absence of the chair or upon the request of the chair, just
Okay,
the vice chair shall exercise.
Yeah.
Everybody good with that? Let's change this. Okay. Committees, the board may appoint representatives for some committees of which a board member shall be appointed as an ex officio member, except that a board Except the budget committee will include all board members as full participating voting members that count towards quorum.
So was it, so budget committee, a lot of times can be considered a subcommittee. And we already have that in there, that we would have an ex officio appointed as to a meeting. So for the stiff stack committee, we do have actually that we have two committees, the budget committee and that stiff stack. So probably need to appoint somebody as an ex officio member of that. And then just making it clear that we're just not ex officio members with the budget committee, but we're fully participating voting members. I put that in there because a lot of, even though it's a little bit redundant, most people misunderstand ex officio. And so ex officio doesn't mean that you can attend the meeting but not vote or participate. So an ex officio member actually can attend and participate and make motions and vote. The difference between an ex officio member and a regular member is the ex officio doesn't count toward quorum. So that's the sole difference for that. But you go most places, they'll say an ex officio doesn't get to vote or or participate in discussion or make motions, any of that kind of stuff. So I just want to make sure that it was really clear that we actually get that an ex officio actually does get to do that. They spell that a little bit more.
Page 4 under C, subcommittees shall keep written minutes and provide written reports of findings and recommendations to the board.
So you're providing reports and findings. Do we need to see the minutes of a subcommittee? Typically not. Typically you want to see the report and the recommendation. The minutes are available if you want to ask, but you do need to keep minutes because it is a public body.
Okay. At number 7, meetings. All meetings of the board shall be held in conformance with state laws, including but not limited to the state of Oregon public meeting laws.
So what this does is, as the state makes changes to different laws and different legislative sessions, we don't have to revise our bylaws to say it's the meetings law in this statute and this administrative rule and whatever. It just says is the public meetings law, which contains the vast majority, it may be all of them currently. But if the state were to ever do anything different and create a rule or a law, we're already covered by all of that in here as well.
C, adding the word special versus interim meeting. Words may be called by the chair or board as necessary.
And the board, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, so it just makes that consistent as well.
Under Robert's rules, doesn't either the chair or the vice chair typically have to open the meeting though?
Yes.
So this isn't talking about opening a meeting, this is just calling for a special meeting.
Put a star on that one. Elected and appointed representative staff members of one public district may participate in meetings through electronic means, any form of telecommunications. So this is just dealing with our.
So we were consistent in that this has always been consistent in that we were silent. So we didn't say anything, so therefore we were not inconsistent with silence in the bylaws.
Oh.
So that's how we achieve consistency. This just really spells it out and says, hey, we can do that. That's all. And allows you to do it in any form, but the piece is that the key to that, to being able to do that, as it allows for real-time interaction in the way of discussions, questions and answers and voting, and allows for the public to listen. So the public doesn't have to be able to comment, but in whatever way you do, they have to be able to listen. to the discussions and all of that stuff that's going on.
That's that here.
So
So should we have something in there allowing members of the board that are attending by virtual means in our quorum section? We had an issue with that on a separate board where people were calling in and they were saying it was, according to their bylaws, it wasn't a quorum, but they were calling, they had to be physically present.
It depends how they're written, but that's why this says elected and appointed may participate in meetings through electronic meetings. So this explicitly allows them to
Yeah, but it doesn't
participate as
spell out
an
that that-
official.
Official.
we can
That
put it,
doesn't
we can
spell
put it in a
out that-
quorum that members attending through electronic means will be counted towards quorum. We can
I
add
think
that,
that's a good idea.
so we can add that to
So
that
maybe-
section.
There is a section on quorum and on page 7, we can add it in there.
Yeah,
You could also say, after you say through electronic means, you could say, and will count towards quorum.
if we have a quorum section,
We
we
have a
have it
quorum
there.
section, put it in the quorum section.
So looking at under number 7C and then number 8A, we're kind of saying, we changed it to special meeting under number C, but we have a special meeting section. So I don't know if the intent of this was, is there an interim meeting that's different than a special meeting?
No,
No,
So can we strike C completely and just have it in A?
yes, actually can, yeah. And you get-
No, because it's addressing meetings. 7 is all meetings. So see, you can strike the special part
special.
of it.
Yeah, let's just strike the special part of it.
And then, and then you get rid of the 7A above and A, that piece I added to.
Okay.
Actually, no, you want to keep the 7A above because it talks about.
Yeah, we're just that one
Informative
sentence,
public meetings. Yeah.
just the last sentence
Yeah.
in C will strike.
Yeah. On the, oh, I don't know if you're on the next page. On this one where it says the secretary or designee will dispatch all notices through the United States Postal Service. Oh, it says and/or, never mind. It's a or.
If we don't have a secretary,
so we stated earlier that
Christine is.
the
the
executive
recording
assistant
secretary.
would be appointed as the
Okay.
Yeah.
recording
I like that.
secretary.
That's typically how it's done.
Yeah.
We put a secretary in there at the beginning because we had no staff.
Mhm.
So there was no appointing secretary. We wanted to have somebody attest to signatures on the resolutions and ordinances.
I was just real confused when we
Yeah.
got rid of the secretary and then we had the secretary on page 6. And I thought I was gonna have to work again.
So number 9, we get into the quorum, and then we will add a section C regarding electronic.
Attendance through electronic means shut down as quorum for committee, board and committee meetings. This is actually board meetings. Because these are bylaws just for the board, not for the committees.
I'm trying to find your, decipher your lettering here, so
9B, I think.
It's, the lettering got screwed up, it looks
so
like.
should it be
So
that,
there should be a B if a quorum is not present.
that other B is out, it's in the wrong place.
And that, by the board members to the next regularly scheduled date, so that's just, there's no other little B there.
Okay, so that should actually be C with the,
And then C would be this, what the piece we just added about electronic.
got it, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I think that was one that just didn't allow me to, couldn't get rid of it.
I think the word potential and conflict, everybody okay with that?
Because that's really what it was discussing.
Okay.
What it's talking about there.
No member shall be required to explain the reason for yes or no vote. Okay, taken off during a roll call. We really don't do roll call, but we haven't, we can.
We can, but we don't, it doesn't need to, yeah, otherwise you're saying, well, if we don't do roll call, then you have to explain it.
Yeah.
Or it could be that
The
way.
only thing. And I'm looking at E. I was thinking under E, you had to state what the conflict was.
It says that they must inform the rest of the board.
Okay.
So now we made the change in that other one about two terms. 2 years, right? Then we probably want to go back to adding this section back in. So undelete it.
Yeah, I would have section 11 added back in.
And just make sure that 9B still is a 9B. Yeah, it is.
So we'll have 11 go back in. Everything else is numbered, so it will be correct back. So do we want to go ahead and not take a vote right now? Have the changes made, sent back out, and we'll take a vote next meeting?
I like that
Sure.
idea.
Okay.
Because I was sure there was something else that I had on my copy, and I can't, for the life of me, remember what it was.
The same process with board protocols. We need to save a tree. I gotta wait till the tree is okay. 7-2. Thanks, Mike, for putting that together. Appreciate your comments on that. Okay. So page 1 of 11, up at the top, chair and striking secretary. Explanatory there.
And this is basically, protocols are generally what we have to say. Basically, if I was to summarize it, it's treat each other with respect, treat people that come here with respect, treat staff with respect.
So the next change, did anybody have any changes through pages 1 through 4? The next change I see here is 5. Is that an addition?
That's just a discussion. So it says, in order to focus the board meetings on consideration of policy issues and to maintain an open forum for public discussion, questions about agenda items should be discussed at the board meeting rather than in one-on-one communications with staff prior to the meetings. Any clarifications or technical questions which can be readily answered can be handled before the meeting. Board members are, so that's a piece right there. So we're saying, don't talk to staff before the meeting,
But then talk to staff.
but then talk to staff. Board members are encouraged to submit their questions on agenda items to the general manager as far in advance, but we're not supposed to talk with them, so that staff can be prepared to respond at the board meeting. So the last sentence makes part, right? It makes sense, because you would want to ask those questions so that the general manager can be prepared and you can actually conduct business. And if you have questions yourself and don't understand things, you should be contacting staff to ask those questions, and that staff should generally be the general manager, not somebody else. You might go to another department head in finance or something, but if you do that, I know when I was in the city council, Roseburg, if we did that to a department, we never did anybody below department head. But if we did a department head, we always CC the city manager. In this case, you would CC the general manager so that they know there's a communication happening perhaps between a board member and that. But I've also been on other boards where the policy is you only contact your staff person, which is actually the general manager.
I think what this is
And they
actually,
can pass it.
and I could be misinterpreting this. I think this is actually almost getting to the point that any questions should be directed through the general manager and not directly with staff.
Well, I think it was the piece that says maintain an open forum for public discussion. Questions about agenda items should be discussed at the board meeting rather than in one-on-one communications with staff prior to the meetings. So, yeah, you want to try to have open discussions and you can have those. But in my opinion, and this is only my opinion, board meetings are there to conduct business. And you can ask me questions and people bring up different points of view and you have those discussions still. But you need to be prepared. It's like reading your packet and finding out information. You should be able to do that before you go to a board meeting so that you're informed enough to actually be able to conduct business at the board meeting. That's where you make, a board meeting is for decision-making, not always just for discussion. Otherwise, you drag out these decisions on and on. And sometimes that will happen, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think just the way it's written, it seems to restrict board members from talking to staff in lieu of just having a conversation out in a board meeting and wasting time, I think.
Maybe it's the way it's written, but I think in order to, I think they're trying to get at that you should be prepared for the meeting and you should be aware to discuss agenda items at the meeting, not necessarily the agenda, but the agenda items.
And I didn't change it because you could have it that way. So if the board wants to have it this way, that's why I said that's a discussion. I would recommend that we change it and we modify it so it's clear that we can be able to ask questions and understand and to help us be prepared for agenda items at the board meeting. I don't know, what do you think? All staff, so.
Well, I know for me, I much prefer to be prepared to be able to respond to something rather than finding out that there is an issue as I walk into the room. It makes it really difficult to respond appropriately if I don't have time to research it. So, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation. A lot of times that conversation resolves the issue because it was just a misunderstanding. Not everybody uses the same dictionary. And so just getting everybody on the same page. Sometimes it's just a little bit of education, information about a funding source, how to use it, or a little bit of background on what's been happening in a relationship that we have with a vendor. It's helpful.
So then maybe striking out the last part of that from questions to staff prior to meetings and inserting board members are encouraged to submit their questions on agenda items. Put that in the first sentence, and then any clarifications can be readily answered, can be handled before the meeting.
Say that again.
So it would read, in order to focus the board meetings on consideration of policy issues and to maintain an open forum for public discussion, board members are encouraged to submit their questions on agenda items to the general manager as far in advance of the meeting as possible, so that staff can be prepared, and then put any clarifications or technical questions which can be readily answered can be handled before the meeting.
So you moving that last sentence up to the second
And,
sentence,
yeah, and taking
basically.
out the second half of the first sentence.
Yeah.
Board meetings rather than one-on-one communication with staff prior to meetings. I think what they're trying to get at here is that we want to have a public forum, being a public forum or public body, we need to conduct business openly in front of the public. That's what that's driving at.
Yeah.
Is there another way to, that's important. So is there another way, I don't want to necessarily lose that either. Is there another way to put that?
Well, that's what that section, I think that they told intent of it was.
And maybe
I think
add
you
in
can
the
read it
word,
differently though.
and I would add in and open to maintain a transparent forum for public discussion. Not open, maintain a transparent forum.
Transparent is good. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's still, again, it's between a board member and the general manager. So one board member, 6 other board members haven't had that discussion. And so one person shares their opinion, or maybe Cheryl may end up sharing that, but we still end up having a discussion because we haven't talked amongst ourselves and decided something. So I think that's kind of what helps keep it open. So I'm just wondering if if we should have a statement or anything in there. Or that's maybe more understood.
I think if we put transparent in there,
Does that-
it's more understood that way.
I would leave open and transparent. I would leave it open there because it gets to the open
There you go.
open forum rules. Open meeting rules.
Maintain a transparent and open forum.
I think the point is we want board members to be prepared for the board meeting.
Once we get all the documentation.
Yeah,
right.
for it.
Okay, so we'll get that hammered out. We added the word ad hoc. In that section.
Because I think there's somewhere in there that allows you to form ad hoc committee, so you can form a committee that's ad hoc being temporary in nature. To provide the board or you or Cheryl some type of information. They can do some work behind the scenes, but they're not a formal permanent standing committee. And so because the board chair has the authority to create an ad hoc committee, it's just making sure that you respect that work for them as well. So just added that feature in was all I did it on that one.
Right.
And is that on 7 and 8? So we're talking about-
Number 7.
That's number 7, is talks about the ad hoc. The standing committee is providing, in-depth discussion. Yeah, I don't know if you need to have the next sentence, the last sentence, board members should respect the work of the committees, because it really just says that on the line above.
Scratch 8.
Scratch, you really could probably you could scratch the whole, all of 8, really.
Well, if you're gonna scratch 8, then
I would
you
almost
want to
leave-
add in
Actually, you could add ad
ad
hoc.
hoc and standing committee.
You could do that and
almost-
scratch 7.
I was supposed to say, I would
Yeah.
scratch 7, leave 8, I like the language in 8.
Yeah. So to say the purpose of board standing and ad hoc committees is to, get rid of 7.
I think that was it. And as with the bylaws, I think it'd be good for us to go ahead and have those sent out to us once they're amended. For one last review and approval next week. Ready to move on?
I just want to go back to one thing that we kind of already went through a little bit, and that was the general manager's contract.
Let's finish item 7.
Oh, that's why we skipped that one. That's why I didn't mention it. Okay, there was a huge, I was gonna say.
So 7.3 SMART goals update, Cheryl?
So I have completed the second quarter quarterly report and all of the reimbursement requests that go with that. And we have put all of the new vehicles that have come back from the dial-a-ride providers into Fleetio. And we're able to run a report and ensure that all of the preventive maintenance goals and intervals are being met.
Fleetio is a program that,
Right, so all of the drivers do their pre-trip and post-trip on Fludio, so it tracks all the mileage and the service intervals and the service that's been done to each vehicle. It's a pretty useful tool to
make the
be able
reports
to.
easy.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So we were able to get everything into there and run reports and see that they are actually, it's working. They're in the appropriate maintenance interval, which is a plus or minus 500 miles. And we haven't missed any. There was one at the very beginning of July that was done at 5,000 miles that should have been done at 9,000. But that's one out of all of the maintenance that we've had done this last month and a half. So not too shabby. And with the change of the dial-a-ride providers, at this point, there's only one lease agreement that had to be put in place because we're still working on the situation with Reedsport. And Mercy is compliant with the drug and alcohol program. And so the key piece for me is the funding and the quarterly reports. So that's really where my focus has been. There has been a lot of deviation from that this month. We did, well, I guess that kind of rolls into the general manager's report, but we did 16 interviews. And so that's 16 plus hours out of a week and a half that were devoted to interviews and the discussion of how we should handle each one of those folks that we interviewed. So kind of time intensive, but my focus has primarily been on the reporting, and the goal is to have it all done by Friday. Right? A little nervous, but after getting the one that I had started, had to go back into multiple times. After getting that one complete, the process rolling forward is easier. So everything else on here is further down the list. So I haven't even focused on anything other than 1, 2, and 3 on the goals. Oh, well, 5, I guess, is
4 and
the
5.
goal. Yeah. So those are the ones that I'm really focused on.
So which reports do you have still outstanding?
It is Q3 and Q4 APR and the SPR also.
And those are due Friday, right?
Mhm.
Anything else in those struggles?
Not on the SMART goals. No.
Okay, let's go ahead and roll back up to 6.2 GM contracts.
And I did have an opportunity to scan through that while we were looking at the bylaws, and it is the one that I had reviewed. So I do not have an issue with signing this contract.
We'll wait for Kat to come back.
Okay.
Jennifer on? She is on. So Kat, we're gonna jump back up to 6.2, the general manager contract. So everybody just a brief bit of time to do a final review of it. Then we can.
We're gonna go through it piece by piece.
Can. So I would kind of just peruse it first. If they had anything you wanted to talk about.
Did we email it? Oh, I sent it to Tom. Tom, did you? You have a
Yeah.
copy of it? Okay, and Mark, I can see his hair there.
Copy of what?
The general manager's employment agreement.
I have I don't know if this is the most current copy, but I did get one, I believe.
The same one that I sent out a week or two ago.
Yeah, I believe I have that.
Basically, I'll skip over the recitals and get into the agreement. Number one is the term. Employee contract shall become effective when voted on by the board of directors. Agreement may be terminated, provided paragraph 9. Employee shall be considered at all times and at will employer or employee, subject to termination provisions provided within hearing. Employee policies. Employee agrees to comply with all policies, rules, procedures, regulations, and directives of UPTD. In the event of any direct conflict between UPTD policy, rules, procedures, regulations, and directives, any of the express provisions of this agreement alone shall control. Duties performed the criteria of general manager during the term of this agreement shall be set forth in the job description attached to exhibit A and B. Employee duties are subject to change. Board director retains the ability to conduct performance evaluations at times of its choosing in its sole discretion. Now, the only thing I have there is, does that conflict with number 6? The only thing I would add is maybe above what is required in section 6.
It actually doesn't, because in 6, it says that they'll be entitled to an evaluation of their performance at such times in such manner as the chair of the board shall deem appropriate, as on or about April 1st
Okay,
of
so
each year. Yeah.
It's just restating it.
Yeah.
Okay. Employee compensation is on item number 5, as well as the cost of living adjustments and wage increases.
So basically, we don't provide a cost of living adjustment automatically, so we would do it in 2 stages. One would be for employees, and if we chose to give the general manager one, we could give you one or not. So it's so this says it's just not automatic.
So I have another issue with this because, sorry, so under term, employee's contract becomes effective when voted on.
Mhm.
It only ends if either one of us terminate it, but then under this, it's stating during the time period of this contract. Is it a contract or is it an agreement
The contract.
That's a contract.
with no end date?
It ends upon termination.
Sorry, go ahead, Cheryl.
So it just allows us to provide that on an annual basis with your review, or not. But typically you do, because you typically are looking for compression.
We had to
between
vote
employees and
for
that.
the cost of living increase for the employees anyway, so
Yeah,
it would
yes.
be a,
Basically saying that the board, it's at the board discretion to approve.
I mean, we could approve it all at the same time and says, yeah, it applies to the general manager too. It's just at the board's discretion.
Right.
I was under the impression that it said somewhere in the agreement that the cost of living adjustment or any, all.
your first one had it.
Oh, okay, so it was in my other.
It's in your
this-
original one.
But this is no different than any other way. I mean, the board's gonna approve the cost of living each year. That's basically what this is saying.
Right,
And that's how it's typically done on every board I've ever been on.
okay,
And typically it's the same.
It's just in that off year, let's say that the cost of living, either the transit district can't afford a cost of living, or the cost of living index actually dipped, where everything's flat. I mean, there's circumstances where we may not offer one up, so it's just not automatic.
Right.
So, performance evaluation, again, we're gonna leave that in April, as stated. Performance evaluation shall be based on general performance criteria in Exhibit A. Benefits, employee may participate in UPTD benefit plan currently provided to employees in accordance with all terms and conditions. Employee shall earn personal time off at a rate of 2.67 hours per pay period, 256 hours per 24 pay period per year. Additional benefits identified in attachment Exhibit C. Modifications, parties.
And I just wanted to just make sure that the performance evaluation criteria, the benefits, all that was what was at the original one, so nothing really changed. I just confirmed the hours with Cheryl in terms of what her pay rate currently is.
Modification of agreement. Parties further agree that any modification of agreement shall become effective on the first day of the fiscal year following modification. Pretty standard there. Our employee shall have the right to request modification of this agreement by giving notice in writing to the party, to the other party. The party shall commence decision within 15 days of such notice. So in that
Discussions.
discussions, thank you, within 15 days. So decisions, that's like, man, we have to probably.
Yeah.
That, so, okay.
And that could be between, like you and Cheryl.
Mhm.
And then you bring that probably to the thing, if you guys thought that made sense.
Okay. Termination, number 9. This
On the paragraph right above that, this agreement shall continue in full force and effect until, strike the word it's just until either.
Oh,
party.
right.
okay.
Damn, you're good.
Good catch.
She is,
She
yeah.
is.
That's what she does over.
That's what I do for a living.
Oh, is
it?
Yeah, that's, I thought that was weird too.
Okay, termination of
Hold over.
agreement in employment. This agreement, employee's employment may be terminated as described below. A, termination by notice, either UPTD or employee may terminate this agreement without cause or reason during its term or thereafter by providing 90-day calendar written notice to the other. Termination for good reason, UPT may immediately terminate this agreement without notice for good reason. And good reason is defined as may include by way of illustration only. Any material violations of this agreement may be in any agreement, any criminal conduct or conduct involving moral turpitude connected with employment or which otherwise reflects adversely upon UPTD's reputation or operations or other reasons which UPTD in good faith after consultation with employee deemed sufficient to justify immediate termination. Okay, again, and it continues on to talk about what good reason is. Number 10, payment of termination. In the event employee is terminated by UPTD for reasons other than for good reason as defined in section 9 of this agreement, that's what I added. Employee shall be entitled to 3 months salary compensation and health benefits provided that employee signs an acceptable form of general release of all claims against UPTD. Separation may be paid in a lump sum within 30 days. Return of property, all records, design, benefits, plans, discs, financial statements, manual, memorandum lists, correspondence reports, cell phone, pagers. You have pagers?
Yeah. You can probably scratch that one.
Electronic devices.
Anyway, everything's gonna be returned. The amendments, no amendments. Are
Oh, that pager back, Cheryl.
Amendments supposed to be in writing, severability, provisions of agreement are severable, and if any term, sentence, provision, covenant, or condition is declared invalid, void, or unenforceable by arbitration or a court competent jurisdiction. Indemnification, employee shall be provided a legal defense, held harmless and indemnified as to any action brought against her by third parties for good faith actions taken within the scope of employment with UPTD. Arbitration, contract shall be reviewed by arbitration, basically that's saying waiver of breach, waiver of both either party of a breach of any provision of this agreement shall not operate or be
Standard legal.
interpreted as a waiver, yeah, controlling law, basically we're getting into the legal stuff. Entire agreement and amendment. Again, just kind of legal language. So that's basically it, and then you have the exhibits that support it. So that's the contract. If everybody's good with the contract, I would entertain a motion to approve the contract.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mike, second from Pat. Any further discussion?
I really wanted to keep the pager.
Hearing none, I'll put it to vote.
Discussion, sorry.
Yep.
Section 15, line 6, entitled to. use spacing.
Arbitration.
Space where?
Line 6, 1, 2.
Oh, yeah,
3, 4,
between
5,
the-
6,
Title
6,
II.
Entitled to.
Between county and circuit.
I'm gonna point that line after
And
that.
then, yeah. Entire agreement and amendment by employee needs to space.
So I don't know if the one you have that you printed off, because you have Mike's, includes the language for the change in termination. So I can get that to you, you can sign it, and then I can come up and sign it as well. So I'll do that.
Okay.
But we need a vote. So taking it
Did
to,
we have a second?
yes,
Cat
Cat
second.
second. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Okay, we have one nay. Motion carries. Cheryl, I think we're on to your reports.
Okay. And honestly, I pretty much have given you the primary focus of this last month. The reports, the reimbursement requests, and the interviews for drivers and dispatchers. That's really what we've been focused on. We did have the project management team and technical advisory committee meetings for the
Master plan.
yes, the transit master plan. And they went well. The study area tour, we took the bus down, stopped at our main stop at Washington and Rose, went down Harvard and across the with the YMCA up by Staples and across at Troost, where we plan to put the new route into place that would go up by the Social Security office. And so we drove a portion of what the new route would be, and then we continued on the regular red line route toward UCC. Once we got there, we hit the freeway and took I-5 down to the 119 exit to show the consultant the I-5 bottleneck area, that there's no way to do the bus lane on shoulder kind of a project, and give them some, firsthand sight of what we're looking at. And then we came back via 99 so that we could see the other side of the commute there that has been addressed in those other two technical advisory things, the I-5 bottleneck one and the 138 plan as well. We also went out to Sunshine Park where they're putting in the new apartment complexes and took a look out there as well. We also drove past the one on Douglas, the new Deer Creek Village, where they've put a a shelter in there for us as well. Then we'll be modifying that route to go that direction here in the next month or so.
Are you looking at first mile, last mile too?
So we haven't got quite that far yet.
I just was thinking all the problems on Dynamite Boulevard, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Down Harvard Avenue would be another prime example of where you just can't.
Yeah.
Hardly walk or bike.
Yeah, well, you have to stick to the sidewalks really,
Yeah.
if you're on either one of those, yeah.
Well, even then, you can't.
Let's see, what else? Oh, okay, so I did have an interesting conversation with JW Milligan, who is a project manager for the proposed Pegasus International Equestrian Resort out there at the Mettsville exit.
142.
Mhm. And they really wanted to be a stakeholder in our transit master plan. He said that they are moving the architects down here to start working on the plans and everything here this fall. And he anticipates they'll be starting to build in just about 2 years. They plan to employ about 500 people. And he's saying the way they're going to build the resort is when you come off the exit, there would be like a visitor center and a parking area. And everybody going onto the premises would either be walking, riding, or in a horse-drawn carriage, but there would be no personal motorized vehicles on the premises. So he wants to partner with transit. He's said partner as in he has money to give transit. And then in addition, you know, the revenue from salaries would increase the tax revenue for the STIF funding as well. So a very interesting conversation. If it all pans out, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's a big if.
Yeah,
if-
don't count any apples.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to think,
None
this
of
has got to be at least the third destination resort on that same property.
Oh,
Yeah.
So they
And
almost
people
never pan out.
already
But
have
you
a
never know.
history of fraud.
so yeah. So anyway, it
Kind of
was
like the Sullivan
interesting.
car plant.
Sutherland Car Plant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not either, but there was the
There was those.
We got $1 million from Defazio for it.
theme park.
The theme park in Sutherland. that never-
Sutherland theme park.
Well,
all
so
of
there
those
you go,
things.
there's another one, yeah.
Wait.
But this family already
Yeah.
has, the father has been charged with fraud.
Oh,
So
interesting.
this is just a scheme to get a bunch of money for them. And then they abandoned all the stockholders.
Lovely.
So don't put too much energy into
So
it.
don't invest in it, is what you're saying.
Yes, that's what I'm telling you.
Okay.
There isn't enough water to
So
do this.
unless you have any questions regarding the general manager report, that's really all I had for that. I did have one other item though. Yeah, it's more teaching than anything. This page here that it was brought to my attention that the South County route, our new South County route that is going to be more of a collector and stay and give more hourly service down there in the South County area and run between Myrtle Creek, Tri-City, Riddle, and Canyonville. I was asked to put together a timeline and have the board approve a timeline. And what I realize is I can't do that because I already have a plan in place that was the public process was followed. We had the STIF meetings, we had the projects were presented and voted on, and the 2019-21 projects I listed here at the top of the page. And the ones highlighted in yellow are the fixed route projects that were approved for the 2019-21 plan year. And that's the lifeline that's connecting Lane and Josephine County, which we're like 2-3 drivers away from being able to put that back in place. The increased frequency for Winston and Sutherland, that's been a high priority since 2013 when it was reduced. And then the Roseburg service is not the next on the agenda after Winston and Sutherland, but it is definitely still on the agenda. All of these projects were already in the STIF plan and they were rolled forward. We did add the South County route, which was not in the last STIF plan, into the STIF plan, but we can't jump it to the front of the line. And every single one of these projects is simply dependent on having enough drivers. And so I would very much like to say I can put a timeline in place, and that would be, we're gonna have enough drivers hired by October and have them trained, by November, and have this route in place by the beginning of the year. I can't guarantee that because drivers are not guaranteed. We did 4 interviews for transit drivers. And we got demand response drivers. We offered to 2-3 transit drivers, and we only got one of them. So the demand response drivers have been interesting to interview. We had one that we sent for a UA, and he came back, had the medical review officer call me and said, sorry, this guy can't go to work for you. And then we had another one that asked while he was filling out his application whether or not we tested for marijuana. And he said, okay, well, thanks. I won't waste your time. And he walked out of the interview, and we had another one that just didn't even show up because of it. So
What are we doing for outreach for trying
drivers.
to get people to come in?
So what we're gonna do next is adjust the pay scale so that we have a non-CDL and a CDL pay scale. And when we adjust the pay scale, I believe that will help.
Are we doing it? Are we like going to any of the career fairs or anything now and posting? Or are we
Like there's
just
the career
posting?
fair in
There was
September.
There was like 2 big ones that
They
just
just
happened.
had one at UCC, they just had one at the
Fairgrounds.
fairgrounds, they do instant interviews, we have SOTC in September at the casino.
Yes, that's the one. Jennifer Boardman is actually planning to go to that one with me. At least I believe that's what our
Southern
plan
Oregon
is.
Trades.
Yes.
I sit on the committee for that, so I would suggest seeing if you can get a booth. at-
So the-
Sarah, we had one last year, and I represented all the transits in Southwest Oregon. The only problem that we run into with that one is the majority of the people coming through are high schoolers. And so
So
qualify for the driving positions.
expansion this year for the afternoon is we anticipate having over 600 people that are app services, veterans families,
That'd be-
and
Last year, we did not have, or 2 years ago, we did not have that many people in the afternoon. It was like trickle came through. That'd be awesome.
I appreciate that, and it was actually me who brought this forward, and one of the things that I like to see is when we have projects that we have a project schedule put together, so we have an anticipated start date, and we kind of can follow when things will hopefully be concluded. Right now, I feel like we're just kind of floating out there as these projects don't have a defined start time or end time. And so that's really why I brought this forward. Burr Creek one was one because I live down there, it impacts us. But I'm glad Cheryl brought these forward, and I agree that, there's projects ahead of that. I personally would like to be able to see some type of schedule outlined for all the projects. Say, okay, we are planning to do this here, and obviously they move, but to formulate some form of schedule of when these things are going to actually start moving through the process instead of just free floating. That was my point with all that, is I like to see a project schedule. If they're on the list and we're being funded for them, we should have some progress being made on them.
Do we have, we update the SIF plan periodically, correct? And at those dates, we could change priority orders if we wanted to.
I think the priority order is fine right now. I just think that we should have some delineated. This project is gonna start here. Here's kind of our benchmarks that we want to go, and here's when we anticipate to end. Project 12, using it as an example, start date, project flow, end date.
Is there an inherent problem with the federal system that makes that not possible?
No, well, we actually were in a place where we were going to put the extension to the lifeline, so it made that connection to Cottage Grove and Josephine County, as well as the change to the Winston-Sutherland service. We had those ready to go when COVID hit. So,
And obviously, that would be a thing that obviously affects a timeline.
Right,
But things
right.
can move.
Well, that,
Not exactly
and not being
a-
able to retain employees, I mean, that's a problem. If we're dependent, if we have 9 projects that we can't do because we can't find drivers, we need to figure out why we can't find drivers and how we can find more
Exactly.
drivers.
Well, and right now, we actually have enough drivers, but we have 3 people out on medical. So until they return from medical, when they return from medical, we will be able to do the Winston-Sutherland and the connection to Lane and Josephine County. And that connection, the one to Lane and Josephine County, would add additional service between South County and Roseburg, but not within South County. But the other alternative that we have happening is the demand response drivers that we're bringing on will be able to put another demand response vehicle down in the South County area, so people won't be quite as stranded.
Okay, so then like for 14, 15, and 16, those are ready to go, you just need drivers, or is that contingent on 11 and 12 being?
Here's
in
what
place?
here's what
guess
I would
is the
like to see is,
question.
I mean, we have these questions on this stuff. I'd like Cheryl as our general manager to actually formulate the strategy and the plan on these and bring that back to us so we can
I
review
like
that.
that idea.
It's nice
After
because when
Friday.
people ask you, you have an
Yes,
opportunity.
after
then-
Friday,
Yeah.
after Friday.
Yes. no,
Yes,
yeah.
Talking points,
Yeah.
and I have those readily available, so.
Okay.
So I guess at this point in time, what I'm hearing is there's a consensus that we'd like to see a schedule put in place for the projects after Friday.
Yes,
Okay,
consider it done.
is that all for your manager report?
Yep, that's it, and that's all.
Jennifer, yep. You have a report for us?
I just wanted to add something to your discussion about having a schedule. You guys are in the middle of your transit master plan, and this is going to be your goals and your projects. It's going to have a list of everything, and it's going to have the public input that is required. So this is something that you guys are going to have as a template, a master plan to go forward on projects. So that's, I mean, you want Cheryl to provide you with that, and that's good, but also you have to have public input in order to ensure that you have the routes where they're supposed to be and where people want them. So that's really going to be your template for moving forward as a board, because it's got everything you need in it. And then
That's fine, but I think we're talking about projects that have already been identified and voted on by the committees. We're talking the current ones that we're working on.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want to make sure that, you have those plans also in front of people, and it isn't something that's happened before the board was formed. So making sure that you have those that are current and part of what the board was from the startup. So the only other thing that I have is that my compliance officer said that there were 3 people who did not attend the class on that Monday night, and we have to have at least 2 more people attend out of your board for that meeting, and it is recorded, and I provided that information to everybody. So we need to have at least 2 more of your board members attend the board training. So
I plan on doing it. I just haven't had a chance to yet.
Great. And then there is that additional training. I believe Cheryl sent out information to you, and it's offered by special districts, and there's several different dates. And 2 dates are virtual, and I definitely recommend that. In addition, we have grant funding, grant management training that is on the 31st, the 1st and the 2nd of September. And there's some great procurement training in addition to each one of the funding streams that you have. It also has that information in there, and I would highly recommend it for you as board members so you better understand the funding streams that you are voting on. And that's all I have.
What was the training that she was referring to? So
So special districts has a number of different virtual trainings.
oh, so it's just a list of virtual training, okay.
Well, some of them were in person as well, and I believe they are not this next week, but the week after and the week following. So the week preceding and the week following Labor Day.
Are they doing any of those, Jennifer, around the time of the transit conference in October?
Oh, I have an update for you on that. So when I attended the OTA meeting on, well, I guess that was last week, we discussed changing the conference to a live conference this year. But because we've waited so long, it would, instead of being in the fall, it will be in the spring. And we'll go ahead and do the trainings, the virtual trainings in the fall, like the Transportation Tuesdays that we did last year. So there will still be virtual training in the fall, but we are looking at, I believe they said the last weekend in, or last week in March for a live conference and in Seaside.
In 22.
Yes,
Isn't that where they had the last one?
yes.
Mhm.
And then the discussion is, do we go back to the fall conference, the fall live conference? Do we wait a whole year and go back to it the following fall? So our conference next year would be.
October's a better time of year, actually, weather-wise than March is, especially on the coast.
It is.
Yeah.
October is better as far as scheduling because most of our grants are due March, February and March. And quite a few reports also are due at that time. So October, I think, is the reason, that's the reason why they've had it in the past. And we get ready for solicitation in November, October, November. And so that way we can hand it out at the conferences.
So I think the plan is to get back on track. But everybody really wanted to do a live conference.
Anything else? Next, we have not on agenda items. Anybody have any?
Sherry is not on our agenda. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Sherry Blue. I came from Southern California, doing plumbing for, I don't know, probably 25 years. That's gonna age me. But yeah, glad to be here. So it's exciting to be a part.
We're glad to have you.
It's exciting to be a part of the growth of a new division, so.
Welcome.
Lots of stuff to keep you busy.
There is, I think we're getting it reined in
Yeah.
and, you know, if you guys see something that you want to tweak on the financials or you want to see more detail, let me know. We can always make those changes easily now.
Perfect.
So not on agenda, we need one volunteer for our TAC, the advisory committee for our transit master plan. Because Lonnie is on the committee, but he is representing Myrtle Creek. So we need a board member to participate in the technical advisory committee.
I would love to, but I'm paying for it. So.
Is that a conflict of
Yeah,
interest?
that seems kind of weird to have another
What are those responsibilities?
I believe there are 4 meetings total and review of the, and that we're doing them hybrid like these, where you can either come in person or you could do them online. And review of the technical memos as they come out and providing feedback as to.
It's not, there's not a lot of commitment to it. It's not like they come out regularly. I mean, there's.
Yeah.
Reading materials, reviewing it. Did you think about
That
this?
sounds
What
perfect
about
for
that?
Sarah. I'm gonna volunteer Sarah because that's perfect for her. And it's not
Agree with that.
perfect for
I'm
me.
good with that.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Sarah. Mhm.
There will be spaces
one
between the
for the-
words.
Perfect. Anything else for not on agenda?
No. Are we building an agenda for next?
We're still
Oh,
on-
not that
not on
far.
agenda. Okay, now we're on agenda build. Now we're on actually public comment.
Oh.
Any public comments, sir? Anybody online? Going once, going twice, hearing none, okay. Agenda build.
Can you ask Ron to be here next month to
Yes.
discuss our ethics
Yes,
issue,
yes.
please?
And then we will have final review of our bylaws and approval of the action item for bylaws and protocol amendments. Cheryl and I will work on getting the contract taken care of. I'll get that one revision to. And I'm assuming you made Sarah's spacing comments, okay? So I'll get that one.
No, I'm pretty
I was just
No,
getting.
she's just
picky about that stuff too.
She's very
so.
good at filling that stuff out.
Kittleson needs to be added to the agenda in September. There's a TAC meeting on September 13th, and then they are presenting something to the board.
Okay.
So,
they need to
as
be
a
added.
reminder from last month, I will not be here at the September 13th meeting because my son is having surgery that morning. So I won't be at that TAC meeting. Sorry, and you're welcome.
Anything else for agenda build? Time is now 6:57.
It depends on which clock you're looking at.
My phone says 6:57.
6:57.
Okay.